All right, I'd like to call this meeting for the West Milwaukee School Board to order. Mr. Keller, could you please lead us in the pledge? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. Suzette, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Mr. Becker,
Present.
Mr. Keller.
Here.
Mrs. Carr. Here. Mr. Sickich.
Present.
Mr. Burns.
Present.
Mrs. Kaiser. Here. Ms. Steele. Here. Mrs. Lee. Present. President Lee.
Here, proper notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the open meeting laws of the state of Wisconsin. Do we have any modifications to the agenda this evening?
We have no changes this evening.
All right, well, then we'll move right into the superintendent's report.
Great. Thank you and good evening, everybody, and welcome. We'll start with 6.1 legislative update. It's brief this evening. So DPI submits a $2.5 billion state budget request for schools. So the state superintendent, Jill Underly, submitted the DPI 2023-25, right? So our state does biennial budgets. The 23-25 state budget request for funding public schools and libraries. This is the official beginning of the state budget process for public schools. This request sets the marker that the next governor will work from in proposing his or her budget early next year. There's no federal updates at this time. And going on to 6.2 district recognitions. Love this one. And so this is Lane 8th grader Giovanni Spikes. Turned in a wallet he found in front of the Culvers on the sidewalk last week to the police department. Lieutenant Johnson and her team wanted to acknowledge this good act of citizenship. And they did a wonderful job of recognizing Geo Spikes at Lane on Wednesday, September 21st. And there's a great picture there of some of our resource officers and other WAPD, and then Giovanni. From communication, Dr. Stewart, I'd like to thank everyone who made the cookout last week happen for the Battle of the Dogs. Well, 2 Fridays ago. Happened for the Battle of the Dogs game. Special thanks to Steve Cosner from Sodexo and his team, who always are willing to say yes, even at the last minute. And it really was kind of a last minute. Steve did an amazing job. And thanks to board members and other administrators that came out to volunteer. It was the reinitiation of, I think, a really cool tradition. Even Beth Kaler came back to help out. So now Beth and I made a pact that we'll both be there next year helping out. From Pershing, thank you to the WAWM Facilities Department for sprucing up our outdoor space and building with a fresh coat of paint. Then a couple updates and information items from me. So it's 6.3. First, response to public comments. So we had one member of the public share comments at our meeting on September 12th of this year. So Mr. Broadwell shared very similar comments that he shared in the past, all of which have been responded to in subsequent meetings. So there's nothing new there. Although I did want to respond again, Mr. Broadwell reiterated his concern that we're working to inspire students to become social justice advocates. And I've said this before, and the honest answer is yes, we are, and we think that's a good thing. Inspiring students to work to improve their communities by being activists in their communities is in fact a good thing for all of us. Update on the superintendent search. So this evening, our board will meet in closed session to receive presentations and to ask questions of 3 superintendent search firms. And following this, the goal is that the board will discuss the merits and qualifications of each and select a firm to move the process forward. A little bit on school consolidation update. So last week, we held a formal planning meeting with principals in the schools being consolidated and with those that will receive students. So having all of these principals together and start talking and planning together as part of the approach. So then in early October, we'll roll out the first communications regarding school consolidation activities, which will include a number of joint school events. Principals in receiving schools that are going to get new students. We're going to start visiting students in their current schools and spending some time supervising lunch hours and recess so they get to know kids and they start to have positive experiences with kids. An interesting thing came from that meeting where when the principals started to reflect on the fact that any families that moved in to a neighborhood where there's a school that's being consolidated. So new families, for example, that moved into the Madison neighborhood, we actually assigned them to next year's neighborhood school, which is Walker. And so now in the neighborhood around Madison, there are students already going to both Madison and Walker. So the kids that are playing together in the Madison neighborhood next year will go to school together. So Madison kids start to have friends that go to Walker from their neighborhood. So it was a little bit of something, we didn't quite design it that way. We're like, well, that's a really positive consequence of kind of planning it this way, this transition. And what I'm going to start doing is updating the board at each regular meeting throughout the school year about the events that have taken place regarding school consolidations and then what's next in the plan. And then a couple other updates. So today was a professional development day for us, so we didn't have students in classrooms. But I want to thank all of our educators who commit time and energy to improving their practice. As professionals, it is vital that we engage in professional learning together. As I shared on a number of occasions with teachers, when we talk about our professional learning opportunities, it really is important that we understand that if we get better, then our students get better, right? Our growth impacts their growth. This week, and this may come up from some of our board members, and Nathan Hill had their homecoming. So I went to watch the parade launch and then headed over to from Irving Elementary over to Wilson, where they had a color run, which was about 180 participants for color run. But Hill, it really is great to feel a sense of normalcy in this and just the energy and excitement. They had a great pep rally that day, as well as another great celebration around homecoming. And then Central Homecoming, that is still on the horizon. That is on October 15th. And that concludes the superintendent's report.
All right, thank you very much. Move on to item 7, our public comments. As a reminder, you will have 3 minutes to address the board. No questions will be answered. If there's clarifications that can be made that are simple, we will do that, but there will not be back and forth. Please start your comments with your name and your address. And you need to sign up in our online form. So if there's anyone online watching us via Zoom who'd like to provide a comment to the board, please use the link in the chat to be able to do so. Right now we have one person signed up, and that's Mr. Broadwell.
That would be social justice activists to push your agenda, Marty. Steve Broadwell, 12965 West Ohio Court, New Berlin. In your warped, non-binary world, when a child claims an identity opposite their biological sex, your early affirmation by using a child's preferred pronoun in school is essential in the early stages of a potentially horrific chain of events that could lead to suicide. It begins with puberty blocking chemical castration medication given to sex offenders. Next come bodily mutilation surgeries, and continues with a lifetime dependency on drugs promoted by big pharma and government agencies as they push this lunacy for profit. Our institutions have now become the left's ideological enforcers. The left hysterically claims that not supporting a child's sex change will lead to suicide, but studies show the opposite is true. When a child matures and realizes what they have done to their bodies and learn it is not reversible, they are much more likely to commit suicide. We can all agree kids do not know what is best for them. A child younger than 18 can't even legally get a tattoo. Why on earth would you think that a child knows what's best for them when it comes to cutting off their penis or breasts? Woke professionals reprehensibly term it gender affirming care. Make no mistake, this is child abuse. I imagine misinformed people think they are doing the right thing with their support, but this frequently ends in tragedy. Regarding the district transgender policy, I've asked multiple times for clarification with a yes/no answer as to whether parents are automatically notified if you become aware of a child's confusion over their biological sex. You've not answered, so I can only assume my interpretation is correct, that parental notification is left up to the child's wishes. To support this fad is to support the end result of mangled bodies and distorted minds of our most precious treasure, our children. Historically, only 0.01% of the population claimed gender dysphoria, and all were boys. We've seen a 1,000% increase in this disorder, and 70% are now girls, frequently going in groups to gender clinics because it's cool, and they are following the trend-setting crowd pushing this awful contagion. Our youth are very impressionable, and this is an example of youth subculture run amok, pushed by major corporations, social media influencers, and unfortunately now supported by our public schools. That liberal icon, Bill Maher, said that he was convinced as a kid he was a pirate. He thanks God that his parents didn't support that claim by cutting off a leg and arm and poking his eye out. He thinks all this is nuts as the most sane people. Most insidious of all is people in authority hiding this mental disorder from parents if a child so chooses. This destroys families. It's pure evil, and this madness has to stop. And I've got an article I'm going to hand out. If anybody wants to read it, you can, but it's the person that went through this explains how awful it was for her personally and how it is for so many kids that go through it.
Okay. I don't see anyone else signed up on the public comments form at this time. Just wait a few seconds in case we had any last minute additions to the Zoom meeting. Seeing none, we'll close public comments at this time. Move on to item 8, our board reports. Starting with 8.1, a board review of the, review of the board calendar. So today is September 26th, 6 p.m. We have a regular Board of Education meeting, immediately followed by a closed session meeting. And then on October 10th, at 6 p.m., we have a regular Board of Education meeting, immediately followed by another closed session meeting. Then Monday, October 17th at 6 p.m., we have Communications, Community Relations Workshop meeting, which are some school showcases. And then on Monday, October 24th at 6 p.m., we have a regular Board of Education meeting, including our final budget tax levy and a financial stability and efficiency workshop meeting. I'm talking about a benefits update. So move on to our board committee report, starting with 8.2.1, employee engagement and culture. Mr. Keller.
Actually, I was not able to attend the meeting, so Mr. Burns can
Yeah,
give
so
an
he's handing it my
update.
way.
I suppose we can hear from Mr. Burns instead.
So we met on the 20th of September, and our group had a short agenda. First, we talked about our Neola policies and updates, both accepting them and moving them forward. So those will be coming to see us soon. The other topic that we talked about was the topic of parental leave for our staff as a way to try and help encourage keeping our staff here. And there are some costs, significant costs associated with that. And so that's looking for being explored with leadership. And when we know more, we'll know more about that and pass it on. But that's going to need a little bit of exploring with finance first. And then some of our future topics as well, because we've had kind of a hiatus on them, is talking about stay interviews and exit interviews. Should be finally getting a bit more of our information so we can talk and see how that's going, and then make adjustments that we're able to and predictive for future topics. And then we are also looking at talking about calendar pieces with how the calendar is set out, possibly looking at adjusting when days fall and when teachers are not in school, students aren't in school, just to see if there's some other help that we can give to keep engagement with our staff and our students. So that's where we are right now.
All right, thank you very much. Any questions for Mr. Burns of the committee regarding his report, or any future items that you would like to have considered?
Was there a timeline on the analysis for the teacher parental leave?
No timeline yet. It was basically, here's where our numbers were, and if you're interested in continuing to pursue, we'll start doing that, but we can keep you appraised.
Yep.
Anything else? All right, thank you very much. We'll move on to item 8.2.2. Wait. Yeah, financial stability and efficiency. Ms. Kaiser.
Miss Carr. We're just passing it off.
Ms. Carr. Any other subs that I should be aware of?
And
You'll find out.
And I think it's interesting that, so Brendan, you're on the finance committee and that one as well. And so,
Oh, we should
I
have Brendan do it.
no. But there's a connection because as we talk about maybe some of the ways we're saving, maybe as a board, we're gonna, really talk about the ways that we want to use some of those funds in the future. So on Thursday, September 22nd, we continued our discussion on the idea of implementing an activity buses for students at our secondary schools. The activity buses will start in the coming weeks and offer after-school transportation for students who participate in clubs, sports, and after-school instructional support. The bus will depart daily at 4:30 to 4:45, depending on which school you attend, and then drop you off at your nearest elementary school. The school services department is finalizing the routing plans with first student in the coming days, and we'll be sending out communication to the students and staff and families about the exciting opportunity. And again, it's something that we've discussed as a board, and Aaron really took it upon himself to work with Connie and to really make this happen. And so, it's a pilot, and we're just going to see, how does this work? Do more kids need it? Is this going to be, enough? Tweak it, change it, whatever. So we're in the beginning stages right now. And of course, committee will be informed on how that's going, and then we'll bring that to the larger board to keep you updated on all of that. Because it'll be really interesting to see, how receptive and how can we keep it so in the forefront, so kids really understand and parents understand that now they have this opportunity. So, okay, so now this is, it's OPEB, and what that stands for is Other Post-Employment Benefits, okay? So we also had the opportunity to continue our discussion around future post-employment benefit potential changes. Last week, the Millman Group had returned our other post-employment benefits actuarially study, where they conducted an analysis of our liability over time. And Aaron has been talking about this and really did a great job of explaining it to us. So let's see if I can do that. Essentially, this helps us as we short and long-term plan around new post-employment benefit options. This report showed that in terms of liability over time, we are finally on the downtrend of our total liability by year. In other words, what we expect to pay each year will start to decline after this year. This is because of the work of the board and the administration and what we've done with long-term planning. And now that we have the analysis completed, we will start to formulate different other post-employment benefits, retirement options for the board to review. And we'll have a workshop coming up in November or December. So that was really good news. And as a committee, we were really glad to hear that.
Very good. Any questions for Jane, her committee, regarding her report? I had two questions.
Okay.
First, about the busing. Are we just starting with one time frame to see how it goes? Because I know that some things get out a lot later than 4:30.
Yeah. So of course, there are always so many roadblocks in doing something like this. So working with First Student and with anybody else that would be involved in this, we were struggling to get other times. So we're starting with this time because we know we can make this one work right now for the after school clubs, and then kind of see where it goes from there. It's we will add on, but at this time, that was when we knew we could get up and running right away.
Okay. All right. And then actually, it's not a question, I guess it would be a statement. So the OPB changes in the analysis, I'm really happy to see that coming along. When I joined the board many moons ago, that was one of the things I heard about, like, oh, this is something that's going to be coming down the road. We have to look at this for long-term viability of the district financially. And so I'm really happy to hear that analysis is complete. We can start looking at our possibilities, so that, again, like the facilities planning, this piece and is in the compensation plan are all pieces that are really important long-term for the district. And so I'm really happy to hear that. Any other questions or comments?
I have a question on the bus. Are there any kind of measures that we're looking at, like just to see if we have more engagement in fall activities, or just trying to understand and asking kids or families if it was a contributing factor to their participation or not participation? I wonder if that's something we can do to kind of assess the effectiveness of that pilot.
Yep, we did discuss that in committee, and we basically did talk to the directors and to Connie Bergman, who's going to be directly affiliated with this. And we said, we want those reports back. We really want you to take some copious notes on how this is going so that we can make some future decisions. And however that might look for them. But we've talked to Erin and, hey, we want to see that data. So yes, we've talked about it and they've got their plan.
Anything else? All right, then we'll move on to item 8.2.3, Recreation Community Services. Mr. Sikich?
Yes, I'll be doing my own
Just
report.
making sure, I know Amy maybe was stepping in.
Our last committee meeting was on Monday, September 12th. We reviewed the edits and discussed the draft of the board policy that will address the process for the creation of co-op teams. This will be brought forward to the board at a first reading at a later date. Shelley shared with us that the Recreation and Community Service team is using an RFP, which is request for proposals to start the process for an approximately 6,700 square foot addition at the Recreation Center, as they are already seeing need for additional space. Erin and Dr. Lexman joined Shelley in sharing a preliminary proposal for the leasing of Lane for a new recreation center that was presented to the full board at last week's workshop. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments for Mr. Sikich or his committee regarding his report? Or any future items that you would like to be considered on their next agenda? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to item 8.3, board member reports of community events. Anyone like to report in on any community events they're able to attend over the last few weeks? Ms. Lee.
Just Jane and I did participate in the Hale homecoming parade as well, which was much fun. To throw some candy at people and stuff, and so it was a good time. So unfortunately, the game didn't exactly turn out as we would have hoped for, but it was a good time up until that point.
Very good. This car.
So as Dr. Lexman mentioned, today was a staff development day. And because I'm a curriculum and instruction nut, that's where I thought it would be a great idea to go to Horace Mann this afternoon, because they had the representative from Blue Dot that came in and was working with them. And so, I said, oh, I'll stop by, got there at noon. Before I knew it, it was 2:30. And it was such a delightful time. It really was. I cannot say enough about the presentation itself and how it aligns to our goals, our strategic plan goals, working with the deeper learning competencies and infusing them in and like ways to do that. And he called them project-based learning slices. And he talked about how you take a slice and that's just could be even a lesson. And he, of course, engaged all the teachers to go through the process for K through 5th grade. And then, of course, we did many of those competencies throughout. And then just a shout out to the Horace Mann staff who were so engaged and so professional and so ahead of the curve. And not to say, I'm sure all of our schools, but just from today, from observing, wow, they really are all in on working with this type of instruction. And I had a really successful day with them. I was very proud to represent.
Very good. Great to hear.
Mhm.
Anyone else? Mr. Burns.
Sure. My family this weekend went to the Harvest Fair, so that was quite the production and very busy. So it was good to see everybody out and about and all the vendors and the rides, and it was chaos but fun. So
Great. Thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Becker?
I'd have to second Marty's Friday evening. The color run at Wilson was a lot of fun. My kids have done it the last few years, and during our visits to Wilson and Walker on Friday morning, the Wilson staff was asking if my kids are going to come to the color run. So I dragged them over there. It was a really good time seeing the UWM players running around, throwing color at the kids too. Was really fun. They all seemed to be having a genuinely good time. And then the Central Celebrations newsletter that went out a week or two ago, I saw that there was a Broadway bound show last night. So the family we went and checked that out over at Inspiration Studios, which is on 73rd and Orchard. It's a really small independent theater. So that was nice to see. All student run youth theater. The kids did the entire production. So it was really, really great to see. It was nice to see kids. There's a couple of kids from Tosa, mostly West Dallas kids though. So it was nice to see some sophomores and some folks that already graduated, but it was a really nice show.
Great. Yeah, that sounds awesome. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to our consent agenda this evening. We have item 9.1, our approval of minutes from our regular board meeting on September 12th and our board workshop on September 19th. We have item 9.2, our employment summary, item 9.3, our supplementary contracts, and item 9.4, our financial summary. Does anyone need anything separated out?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any last minute discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that passes. Let's move on to our action items this evening, starting with 10.1. Central High School Pom Dance Team extended travel to Orlando, Florida in February of 23. Is Ms. Strankowski?
Yes, I'm here. Hello.
Go ahead, we can hear you.
Okay. Hi, my name is Emma Strankowski. I have been the Central Dance coach for the past 3 years. I will kind of be speaking on behalf of both high schools as Michelle couldn't be here this afternoon. So basically the trip, we got invited for being one of the top 15 dance teams at the Badgerette Midwest Grand Championships. This is something super special and something that we work towards to make it multiple years in a row since both high schools went last year as well. The cost includes park passes, travel, hotel, and some of their meals. The experience includes multiple performances provided by Badgerette, as well as some exclusive dinners that they go to, kind of offsite and as well as at Disney. And then we also do the All-Star Talent Tour Parade, which is a parade dedicated to just the kids that make it on the trip. I believe last year there ended up being over 200 dancers, which was awesome. And then to pay for this, we will be fundraising as much as possible to keep the cost down. And parents are aware of the financial responsibility if it's not fundraised for.
Right. Any questions? Ms. Kaiser.
I was just wondering, is this for dancers that already been approved through like a former competition or?
Yes, this is for dance. It's for the dance teams.
Okay.
Any other questions? Now I look for a motion.
Move to approve 10.1 and 10.2.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to approve 10.1 and 10.2. Just want to
Yeah.
make sure it's clear.
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So then move on to 10.3, approval of professional staff and support staff board policy updates from December 2021 as a first reading.
Yeah, I will turn it right over, but this is a set of policies that just lagged a little bit in terms of the last round of updates that we did with Neola, getting them through committee. So just so you get kind of the timing of it, but with that, I'll turn it over to you, Marianne.
Basically, 10.3 and 10.4, it is 10.3 is the professional staff. 10.4 is for the support staff. They're basically the same policies. It is additional language in the criminal history requiring some self-reporting and then the other one is the drug-free workplace. The committee, we reviewed it back in August, had some questions, got answers, and so then we discussed them at our last meeting.
And I think just for clarification, I don't know why I didn't catch this when we looked at the agenda, but 10.4 should be as a first reading.
No, no. No. it's only 10.4.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
it is correct. Okay.
Yeah, it is. So here's.
Okay, so
here's what I had on
10.3 is the first reading.
right,
and then-
For those couple that.
And then
Anybody has
10.4 would
questions on
be from the time before.
Mhm.
So they are
Okay.
two separate, so I apologize.
All right.
No, because
No,
we
We'd
have
have
to
to
do
do
them
them
separate.
separate.
One's a second.
No, just check. Any questions or concerns? This is a first reading, so we're not officially approving them as of yet. So if anything comes up in between, you can email Mary Ann and she can ask those questions.
Motion to approve. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any last minute discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that passes. And we'll right into 10.4, approval of professional staff and support staff board policy updates from December 2021 as a second reading. Which is the rest of them. Ms. Marshall.
So 10.4 is a carryover from August when we had the first reading. So now in September, we're doing the second reading.
Were there
I
any
know I
changes-
have terribly exciting stuff. I know.
Were there any changes between the first
No,
and second?
there
reading?
was not.
Any
And you did
questions?
notice I followed in all the trip.
Any questions from the board? Comments, concerns?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any last minute discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Right, that passes.
Thank you.
Very much. All right, so that ends our regular meeting. So we will adjourn for 5 minutes so we can get set up for our closed session. We are adjourned, or in recess, I'm sorry, not adjourned. All right, so I would look for a motion and a second to move back into open.
So move.
Second.
And then can we get a roll call vote, please, Suzette?
Mr. Becker,
Here.
Oh, yes.
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 I'm here. Yes.
Mr. Keller,
Yes.
Mrs. Carr,
Yes.
Mr. Sickich,
Yes.
Mr. Burns,
Yes.
Mrs. Kaiser,
Yes.
Ms. Steele,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee. Yes. President Lee.
Yes. All right, so we had a discussion regarding the presentations that we just had in closed session for the search firms for the next superintendent for the West Sassos Milwaukee School District. And so I would look for a motion to put forth the candidate we discussed.
So moved.
Need to state, the motion needs to state the candidate's name in it.
Move to hire Ray and Associates to be our superintendent search firm.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
All right, so that passes. I look for a motion then to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.